Hi there! Once again, my name is Andrew Massey and welcome to another lesson with the Zeal movement. Today we're going to be talking about microphones and microphone technique. So before we get started, in my opinion, it's always best to understand a little bit about how something works before you actually use it. Similar to driving a car, you need to understand the ins and outs of the accelerator and the brake and all of that stuff before you learn to drive a car. Same thing here. All right. So a basic dynamic microphone such as this, I'm going to take you through the basic construction of it and how it works before we get on to using it. So I'm going to open this guy up. Don't try this at home. Take the cable off for a second. Now, if you were to take the grill of this microphone off, what you would notice is a thin film. It looks almost like when you were in school and you did that thing with Prit. All right, that is a paper film. Now that is attached to a coil of wire. Now if you look in the side there, there's a coil of wire, and inside that is a magnet. Now pretty much when you sing into a microphone, the film moves from the breath and the sound that you're sending at it. It vibrates, which then in turn causes the coil to move because it's attached to it, and that is surrounding that magnet, which then creates an electromagnetic field. All right, creates electricity. You pretty much learned this when you were in junior school. So that creates the current basically, and that is what is going to essentially create the sound in layman terms. All right. So that is the basic construction of a dynamic microphone such as this. There are various kinds, but in a live situation, this is more likely what you're going to encounter. So I'm going to pop that back and plug it back in. You always want to make sure that everything is turned off when you're doing that. All right. Now, when it comes to using a microphone, a lot of singers have a beef with a sound engineer, and sound engineers have a beef with singers, mostly because singers don't understand the ins and outs of how a microphone runs through a sound system. All right? So we often have that back and forth about a singer wanting to hear more of themselves, and in the sound check not always doing exactly what is needed so that the sound engineer can do his job properly. So I'm going to take you through the process of what is needed to set this guy up through the sound system, and then how to use it further than that. So I'm going to take you over to the mixing desk, which is just down here, and I'll talk you through it. Now this is a basic analog mixing desk, which I'm using for the purpose of illustrating today's point. All right. Now when I said the setting up of it and the beef with the sound engineers and things like that, the main issue comes down to when you first set up the mic. An audio engineer needs to set what we call the gain, which in layman terms is the sensitivity of the microphone. Now on a basic analog desk such as this, on each channel you find the gain knob at the top here. Now this sets the sensitivity of the microphone and has a lot to do with volume, but it's not just that. All right, so when you first plug the microphone in, this is the first thing you have to do. So what we do is we put on the PFL, which is pre-fader level, okay? And without even turning the mute button off, you're going to be testing the gain structure of the microphone, and you're going to see the levels rising as I turn the gain knob up. So I'm going to just go 1, 2, 1, 2, testing, 1, 2, you see it rising there, testing, 1, 2, 1, 2. All right. Now ideally, where you want it to be, a sound engineer will tell you this, is around the 0 dB mark, so as it starts turning orange there. Now if you're talking in a sound check and you're just going testing 1, 2, testing 1, 2, they're going to have to ride the gain quite a bit in order to get it to that 0 dB mark. However, when you are singing, you're going to be singing a little bit louder than that. So your first thing you need to do when you're doing any kind of sound check is to sing at the loudest volume that you're going to do in the show. All right? So as an example, I'm going to now turn it down and go, ah, yeah, oh yeah. Now what you would have noticed is where I set the gain, it's substantially lower than where it was when I was just talking. And what you'll notice is as I'm talking there now, the levels are quite lower. But when I'm singing at my loudest, hey, it's pretty much at that 0 dB level or just going a little bit above. Yeah! Now, that is correctly set up according to my voice. All right, and this is what sound engineers are doing when you're doing a sound check and they ask you to test the mic. That is how they're setting it up. And then obviously after that, if you unmute it and start raising the fader, or 1 2, a 1 2, hey, there I am over the system. All right, so that's the basic setup of the microphone over the mixing disc. And that is usually where the first problem occurs in terms of knowing what to do when using the microphone. Alrighty, we're back away from the mixing disc. Now we're going to start talking about how to actually handle this piece of equipment. So first of all, this part of the microphone is the actual handle. Now, a lot of people and rappers and the whole thing, they tend to cup the microphone like this, which is mostly incorrect, all right? This is the actual handle of the microphone where you're supposed to hold it, okay? It has a little bit of leeway, you can kind of get in maybe about that high, but generally you want to hold it on the handle of the microphone, all right? Then, the basic pickup of a dynamic microphone, okay? The largest part of the pickup is right in front of the microphone. So to illustrate, over here, I'm talking into the microphone. You can hear it nice and clearly, all right? And as soon as you bring it a little bit away, you see the volume drops. It still picks it up, but it's not ideal. Where it is ideal is right in front of it, okay? So that is the first thing you always need to do. You need to be singing directly into or talking directly into the microphone, okay? Then, the distance is always an issue, all right? So a lot of people know, okay, you need to be quite close to it, and then when you're singing louder, you pull away, all right? But you see what happens when you pull away, okay, it pretty much deadens, yes? It goes into mute function, okay? So the general rule of thumb is about 2 fingers when you're talking, all right? And if you're talking a little bit louder, you can pull it away just ever so slightly, but you don't want to pull it away so that it can't be heard, yes? So even when you sing, the same rules apply, all right? So if you're singing a little bit softer, you can get in quite close, but never eating the microphone and like being there with your lips, all right? You want to be there. So when you're singing and you're getting a little bit louder, you can pull it away like... So you're going to be pulling away from about 2 fingers to maximum like 4, all right? But as soon as you drop it too much, it's gone, all right? This is the first mistake that singers make, is they pull it away too far, and then the engineers have to scramble to kind of rectify it. And then by the time they've rectified it, and you've come back to this position, then it's changed, and they have to adjust it back, all right? So that movement, 2 fingers to a maximum of 4, and back again. That subtle movement, that is all that is needed when you're using it, all right? Another thing always to consider is the possibility of what we call feedback. Now, just to briefly explain what feedback is, all right? When you are sending signal into a microphone, okay, and it's going through that process that I explained right in the beginning, into the mixing disc, out through the speaker, all right? Now, if you are too close to the speaker, or if the gain is set too high, the sensitivity is like picking up too much, all right? What happens is the sound goes in here, out the speaker, but if you're too close, it goes directly then from the speaker back into the microphone, and it creates what we call a loop in the system. And that's when you get that screeching sound, that the feedback, all right? You always want to avoid that. It's bad for your ears and it's bad for the speaker. So right, you want to avoid that at all costs. So pretty much where I am, it's kind of a dangerous area. I'm pretty close to the speaker, but luckily I've set it up in such a way that it's not going to feedback, all right? So if you are too close to the speaker, you're going to feedback. Similarly, if you have a wedge monitor in front of you, if you're a little bit too close to that, it can cause those kinds of problems if the gain is set too high. So you always want to be aware of your positioning, your standing position or movement position based on where the speakers are, where the sound is coming out, so that it doesn't cause feedback. In relation to that, it's also important to realize your movement and the positioning of the microphone, particularly if you're using a stand. So I'm going to pop this back into the stand. All right. Now, a lot of singers have either the microphone stand positioned too far down, so then you have to bend to get in there, okay? Or too high, so you have to reach to get in there. You want to position the microphone stand so that it sits directly in front of your mouth, like that, so you can hear the sound is quite optimal at the moment. All right. Then, when you're moving, what happens is you are going away from the microphone like that, and the sound is disappearing, right? Ideally, you want your mouth, as I said, when you're using it, to be directly in front of the microphone. So any kind of movement that you do, all right, you're still keeping your mouth directly in front of it so that you're getting the correct sound, all right? So always bear that in mind as well. Don't move too far from it so that when you're talking or singing, it's going away and coming back. You want to always be there. You want to keep it there so that when you sing, the sound is optimal. All right, so that is first prize when you're using the microphone in the microphone stand. Another thing to consider is what we call popping, all right? There's explosive sounds like P's and B's and things like that, that if you overpronounce them, you get a popping sound over the mic, yeah? You don't want this, all right? So you always need to bear in mind when you're saying words with, or singing words with P's and B's and even T's, those kinds of explosive consonants, that you soften them ever so slightly. You can hear when I'm talking now, there's no popping going on simply because I'm controlling how I speak, yeah? You don't want to soften them too much, otherwise it's going to be popping sounds, yeah? And then audibly what you're saying or what you're singing is not going to be right. So you always want to just control your popping, your B's and your P's and your T's, all the explosive consonants, so that those don't mess with the sound of the microphone too much. So that's the ins and outs of how to use a microphone on a basic level. Now, in a live situation or even in the studio, okay, there's a few more points to consider. It's always best to use your ears. So listen to the monitor mix that you're being given through your monitor or in your ear monitors if you're in studio, all right? But it is always best to sing at full capacity. Now, full capacity obviously based on the song and what your role is, but never compensate too much, especially if you're a backing vocalist and trying to hang back too much, because the mixing happens in the front of house or after the fact if you're in studio. So it's always best to sing out and do your best in whatever your role is at all times. Alrighty, to close off, I'm going to sing a little song for you now, and I'm going to the best of my ability, try and demonstrate all the little things that I've spoken about in terms of distance, watching your pops, and then the subtle movement of the microphone. So here is a song that I wrote called Time That I, and pay attention to how I'm singing it over the microphone. Here we go. I was lying in my bed, wondering what to do today. I've got the voices in my head telling me to not be brave, and it's just me, I've got myself to prove, that I'd climb a mountain just to get to you. And I guess it's time that I not waste another minute. And I guess I'll try to never let you down. bringing the stand in now. Now I must find the words to say, and the courage not to find a reason to get down on my knees and pray that I won't be the one to catch your tears, and it's just me, I've got myself to prove, that I'd climb a mountain just to get to you. And I guess it's time that I not waste another minute, and I guess I'll try to never let you down. Alrighty, in this next section I'm going to come a little bit closer to the mic so that you can see when I'm singing softer, and then bring it away as it gets louder again. And I guess it's time that I not waste another minute, and I guess I'll try to I'll never let you down, that I not waste another minute, and I guess I'll try, I guess I'll try. I'll never let you down. No, I won't. I'll never let you down. No, I won't. No. Alrighty, so you would have seen how in that last bit where I was singing out quite a bit, I had that subtle movement of the microphone, not too much, so you can still hear the voice. If I pulled it away too much, it would disappear. Alright, and then in the softer sections, I brought it in just a little bit, but still, you would have seen that is the movement, still in front of my mouth and still correct. Alright. So I hope that was real informative, and we hope to see you again soon. Take care.